Is absolutely a moment of, you don't like microphone. It is absolutely a moment of honor and pride for us that none other than Mr. EUGENIO BARBA is with us today. He and his one of the chief actress, Yulia Barle, will be on stage for a conversation with you. I would also request Ms. Yulia Barle to kindly come up onto the stage. And I would request our ex-director and one of the senior most professors of National School of Drama, Theatrical, to kindly come up onto the stage and offer the flower. Love. Kindly come up onto the stage and offer flower to our dear Barba.
There are many ways of suffocating a living legend. The flowers. So please, you know what we do with flowers. We don't want to do something like that. Please. Liberate the flowers. Start the movement now. Liberate the flowers.
Though Mr. Barba absolutely do not need any introduction, but I would like to say a few words on this occasion. Eugenio Barba was born in 1936 in Italy and grew up in the village of Gallipoli. His family's socio-economic situation changed drastically when his father, a military officer, was a victim of World War II. Upon completing high school at the Naples Military College, he abandoned the idea of embarking on a military career, following in his father's footsteps. Instead, in 1954, he emigrated to Norway to work as a welder and a sailor. At the same time, he took a degree in French, Norwegian literature, and history of religions at Oslo University. In 1961, he went to Poland to learn directing at the State Theatre School in Warsaw, but left 1 year later to join Jerzy Grotowski, who at that time was the director of the theatre at 13 Rows in Opole. Barba stayed with Grotowski for 3 years. In 1963, he traveled to India, where he studied Kathakali, a theatre form which was unknown in the West at that time. Barba wrote an essay on Kathakali, which was immediately published in Italy, France, the USA, and Denmark. His first book called Grotowski in Search of a Lost Theatre appeared in 1965 in Italy and Hungary. When Barba returned to Oslo in 1964, he wanted to become a professional theatre director, but being a foreigner, he was unable to find work. He gathered together a few young people who had not been accepted by the State Theatre School, and created Odin Theatre in October 1964. As the first theatre group in Europe, they worked out the new practice of training as a total apprenticeship. They rehearsed in an air-raid Great Shelter, their first production, Ornithophilie, by the Norwegian author James Bjørnboe, which was shown in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. They were subsequently invited by the Danish municipality of Holstebro, a small town in Jutland, to create a theatre laboratory there. To start with, they were offered an old farm and a small sum of money. Since then, BARBA and his collaborators have made Holstebro the base for their multiple activities. During the past 50 years, Eugenio BARBA has directed 76 productions with Odin Theatrical and with the intercultural Teatro Mundi ensemble, some of which have required up to 2 years of preparation. Among the best known are Feral, 1969, My Father's House, 1972, Brecht Ashes, 1980, The Gospel According to Oxyrhynchus, 1985, Talabot, 1988, Cosmos, 1993, Mythos, 1998, Anderson's Dream, 2004, Ur-Hamlet, 2006, Don Giovanni all'Inferno, 2006, The Marriage of Medea, 2008, and The Chronic Life, 2012. Since 1974, Eugenio BARBA and Odin Theatrical have devised their own way of being present in diverse social contexts through the practice of the barter, an exchange of cultural expressions with a community or an institution structured as a common performance. In 1979, Eugenio BARBA founded ISTA, International School of Theatre Anthropology, thus opening a new field of studies, theatre anthropology. BARBA is on the advisory boards of scholarly journals such as the Drama Review, Performance Research, New Theatre Quarterly, Teatro Historia, and Urdimento. Among his most recent publications, translated into many languages, are the paper canon from Rutledge, Theatre Solitude, Craft Revolt by Black Mountain Press, Land of Ashes and Diamonds, My Apprenticeship in Poland, followed by 26 letters from Jerzy Grotowski to Eugenio BARBA, Black Mountain Press, Arhar el Cielo, Casa de las Americas, Havana, La Conquista de la Diferencia, Huachcani, San Marcos Editorial, Lima, on dramaturgy and directing, Burning the House, Rutledge, and a Dictionary of Theatre Anthropology in collaboration with Nicolas Avarese, Rutledge. Eugenio BARBA has been awarded honorary doctorates from the University of Aarhus, Ayacucho, Bologna, Havana, Warsaw, Plymouth, Hong Kong, Buenos Aires, Tallinn, Napoca, Edinburgh, and Shanghai, as well as the Reconnaissance de Mérite Scientifique from the University of Montreal and the Zoning Prize from the University of Copenhagen. He is also the recipient of the Danish Academy Award, the Mexican Theatre Critics Prize, the Pirandello International Prize, and the Thalia Prize from the International Association of Theatre Critics, IATC. I will stand no more between you and Mr. BARBA and Yulia, so the time is all yours and yours. Thank you.
After you heard the introduction, so you know what expects you if you live 81 years. And the question is how one gets all these prizes and acknowledgement. I feel today as a character of the gospel, the Christian gospels. It's called the story of the prodigal son. There is a father who has two sons, and one of them says, I want to leave you. I want to leave your house. I want to leave your land. I want to leave the legacy you represent. And I want to go away. And he goes away. And he disappears. And for professional identity, India represents home. It is a place where I started my long journey. I was only 20 years old when I came to India. I just migrated to Norway. I was a worker. I earned my life working, and I didn't know the language. So I felt very certain. And in the evening I went to the library and read books. And I read a book about Ramakrishna, about Vivekananda, about the renaissance of Bengali culture at the end of the 18th century, with the Rome Mori, with the Tagore family, and of course Ramakrishna and business of Vivekananda. And it was very fascinating. You know, you see, we know scientifically how our brain functions. Our brain functions, all human brains, functions that we get some information, we can call it knowledge, and then we start processing it, and then we start transforming it. We cannot avoid to transform it. We can go study Stanislas, we can study a religion, we can study anything, but at the moment we are processing it, and we are living it, and we are giving life in acts, in a sort of aspects of medicine. I say, but how did you become a dentist? Because when I went to high school, I read a poem by Ogden Nash, an American poet. And it was a poem about human illness. And he, or the poet says, or presented my first journey to Calcutta. Still remember clearly the steps. And coming back, meeting Katakani, this strange voices in the night where I didn't understand anything. First time, you can't imagine, but it was in 1963 for a young European who was accustomed to theater made of text. Colors, rhythms, an audience sleeping, peasants, tired after the figure. And the same time, this quality of the getting on the stage, continue. Where did you get the motivation, the energy from? Because he believed, because it was a sort of professional superego. I don't know. This is what I got from India professionally. The mystery of the extraordinary possibility of the individual as actor. And if the Indian actors in Kerala were able to do this, any individual in South Africa, in China, Manchuria, I don't know where, but also in Europe, could be able. But how lead the actor, for me as director, to this moment where he integrated all his possibilities, physical, mental, of energy, of the ignorance about himself, herself. They are so ignorant about ourselves, and they be discovered in the course of the process, working process, complete working. How live each individual actor to his or her own development. I began when I left Poland. I thought that I would be back and be a director. At that time, theater was very, very easy to understand. It was a building, and in this building, texts were performed by actors who were living by performing texts. Then, beside this society, or this industry, or this craft, it exists a completely different theater culture, which was the one of the amateur. You understand? Amateur. They were not depending economically on the spectators, because they were doing theater in their free time. During the day, they were doing other things. So when I went back to Norway in 1964, I presented myself to all the theater, all the professional theaters in town, in Oslo, and all the directors told me, I'm sorry, we cannot engage you because you have no diploma from a theater school. You are Italian, you are foreigner, you don't know perfectly our language, etc., etc. So, despite I had a very, very beautiful letter of recommendation of Levi Grotowski, and he told me, who is this person? Now, so it was up. There lies the city of theater. You enter in the city. Young people. This city has its rules. It's one-way street. Certain neighborhoods which are more fashionable than others. There are peripheries. There are parks. There are leisure houses. There are brothels. There are hospitals. There are churches. Pieces. You see that? But if you don't power, it also decides on how this working power will be used. And this is one of the rules, honest rules of our society. So if you want to do your own theater, if you want to give life to your capriccios, to your strange ideas, to your longings, to your revolt, to your rebellion, to your indignation for all these filthy things which happen around us, you have to create your independent theater. Not depending by those who have power and money. I'm speaking as a mentally ill person. Is it this possible, or is just a crazy man? When I didn't get a job in the theater in the city of Hitler, I knew, because I had read a lot of books, very important books. I knew that it existed, this amateur theater society. And I knew that all the people I loved in my profession, people like Stanislavski, the sort of person I loved, I knew their biography. Read the books of written by Stanislavski, by etc. But read about their biography. They are unbelievable because they began in the same conditions like you and me. We did not support at all. And when they tried to explain what they want to do, people showed their heads. It's not possible to do this. So reading the biography, you know how those rebels or those misfits managed to find the way of building their autonomy, economic autonomy, and artistic, and gathering people, and keeping them, and building an ensemble, because this is, in all theater cultures of the world, this is what Stanislavski is the first one to do. He invents the idea of an ensemble, a group of people who remain together for years and years and years because there is an affinity of these people. Not data, not because believe in a certain ideological idea. No, because there is an affinity in finding in art something which is transcendent themselves. Theater is poise. The nature of theater is a DNA. No, that is double L. The double L's of our profession's DNA on one side is the relationships do not last very long. We create for a very short time. Production, we can remain maybe 1 year together, and then everybody goes away, gathers another company, and then very production. This happens. Okay? It also happens in the history of all cultures. start from what I consider most important. I want to do theater. What do I need? What is most important for me? Money? No, it's not money. A few actors. So I started searching for a few actors. I found them who shared the same situation like me. They want to do theater, but they were excluded. Also from the theater school. I gathered them. I said, I want to create a theater. Of course I said I want to create experimental theater, because word experimental always sounds very I want to do experimental theater. Not the traditional theater, obviously. And then they started. What? You don't hear?
There's a little problem, Mr. Barba.
No, no.
Can you understand?
Non possono capire, mi dicono che sopra non capiscono.
I had 15 people who decided to follow me. So, okay, so I say to them, I will contact you within a couple of weeks. And then I had to find, what did I need? I had the people. I need a place where to go. Where to go? Of course, I couldn't use a theater. I had no money. It didn't exist free theaters there, or even to lease. So a friend of mine was a teacher, school teacher. He said, you can use my teaching, the space, the room where I teach. You can go there in the evening because it's free. You can do cultural work. And you can take the seats aside, and then you have space. So I gathered these people there. It was a very strange situation. I felt like one of these historical figures, like Napoleon, which arrives under the pyramids. I must say something very important to my young actors. So they followed me, very astonished. They were thinking that we were going to a theater, and I took them to a school, to the 4th floor of this school. And then there was the door. So I turned to them, and I said very, very powerful words. Please take off your shoes. So they took off your shoes. And then I said, inside, silence. No one is allowed to speak except when I give permission. Why? Because I knew that if they start asking me, I would not be able to say anything to them. Not because I believed in the power of silence, but I was extremely insecure. Can't imagine. But, you can imagine because you are insecure yourself. And then I asked each of them what they had been doing in their life. And out of it, I understood one had been doing sport. I said, then you are going to be the teacher of course, I can't say sport. Theater is art. So I had to find something very fine for our theater. They say, you will be the teacher of biomechanics. Now, we are in 1964. There were at that time very few information. Stalin in 50. So all his work, all his books, all his information about him was erased by the Stalinist apparatus. But there was the legend. I remember in Poland, there was this a legend of Merkel who had been inventing this biomechanic. And then the young boy asked me, but what is biomechanic? I didn't know myself, so I invented. Because you see, I got information about biomechanic, became part of my knowledge. At the moment I have to use this knowledge, I adapt it to the circumstances. This is the way. We all are creative. We adapt stored knowledge and experience to new circumstances. In this consists our creativity, not to repeat mechanically, even if you wanted to do this. Somebody had been studying, a girl, classical ballet, she became teacher of classical ballet. So this was what joined together the first generation of Odin Theatre. We were all excluded by the city of the theater, and we all were at the same time teachers and pupils. My young actors very soon understood that I had not much experience. Please don't take pictures, will you? Thank you. They very soon understood that I had not much experience. But I don't know why, some of them followed me. There were 15. After 2 weeks, were only 4. These 4 remained with me for almost 2 years. We made a performance, and this is very important. You have read about Grotowski, you have read about Odin Theatre, you have read about training. But remember, training is an English word. Training, it means learning. You train to be a doctor. Doesn't mean that all the time, all your life, you are. Of course, you learn, but there is a certain period of apprenticeship. So training, it means a period of apprenticeship where you learn certain basic know-how, but more than know-how, you learn certain basic mental attitude. Because technique is know-how, incorporated know-how, which is moral, ethical values. It's very interesting that the word training came to the Western world and also to you by a choice made by Grotowski. In Polish, the word treningować is very strange, it's sort of a neologism, it's not used very much. While the word ćwiczyć, which means to exercise in order to be someone, is the one normally used. But Grotowski was shrewd, very shrewd, like Krishna almost. He preferred the word training because in the ears of the bureaucrats, and they are also gives, we are doing training, instead of, we are just exercising. So we began like this, but very soon we began to prepare a performance because an actor learns only by preparing performances and performing for the audience. When people come today and see our performances and can see a certain quality in what they are doing, it is because our actors have been very privileged in their time. Each of them has been performing the same performance 100, 200, 300, some 400 times. And this gives a huge, huge experience to face the spectators. This is the most important learning situation for the actor. How to fight against the intimidation, the fear, how to master the distraction which can arise because a very important critic has come, how to fight against routine. And all this is what make the stamina of an actor, the experience, the incorporated intelligence, knowledge. For 2 years, I used almost 2 years, 1.5 year, to build the performance. But of course, because I was free. Nobody was saying, hurry up, to do the performance. I could take myself the time I wanted. I was outside the seat of the town, of the theater, but I was a free man, and I could decide the pace of the work, the criteria of the work, what to demand to my actors, what they should reach of standard before I could say, from here we can continue upwards. And this has had a huge influence on our way of working, the first generation, so that not only we were geographically, culturally outside the theater, but also mentally, we created a completely different way of thinking. And when, after 68, a generation came to theater, and they want to use theater as a sort of transformative weapon, very much politically often. They discovered Odeon Theater, this small group in a small town in Denmark, who had been able, by teaching themselves, to construct, to build their own, you can call style, their own culture, very important, the professional culture, which didn't follow the criteria and was completely autonomous by the demands of the market. So this is very shortly the beginning of Odeon Theater. To tell you that what you see today, all these lists of honors, doctorates, extraordinary, but what for me is the sense, which I may show to you, is that it is possible. It is possible to be a foreigner, to be discriminated as a foreigner, to be discriminated as someone who has no talent, and then excluded by the theater profession. Nevertheless, if you find others, join them, be able to find a way so that the natural inclinations, individual inclinations, don't become a sort of tendency to distraction, discussion. Therefore, silence was so important for us. If somebody disagreed, then he had to come with a concrete proposition. I could ask an actor to do something, and then I was satisfied. But the actor maybe was not satisfied. Then he didn't start discussing. He would come the next days and say, I have another proposition to show you. And then he showed me another proposition. Sometimes I found that this proposition was not interesting for me, and I told him, no, find something else. It was very evident. The actor wanted to change what I had originally accepted, until this sort of dialogue arrived to a conclusion which was satisfactory for the actor and the director. So these sort of rules or behavior can happen only in an ensemble. And I will conclude with one thing. I felt that I was very grateful to some people who had been learning me how to be a leader. The first one was, no doubt, the owner of the mechanical workshop, because when I arrived there at 7 in the morning, he was already there. He was working beside us. He was also a worker. We went home, all the other workers, he remained there to do all those things. So he became, for me, the image of the leader, the one who works the double of the others. Very concretely, I incorporated in my worker culture. The same was when I was a sailor, because I was working in the engines. Officers worked in the same watch together, and they were doing the same work as we common sailors were doing. Then I went to Poland. I had teacher at the theater school, one, especially one, who I felt gave me a lot. And then, of course, Grotowski. But strangely enough, when I began to work, all this didn't function. My situation was very different with these young people who had no experience. I had to become a teacher. I had never thought that I should become a teacher of actors. And then, after a few years, I understood that my most powerful, deepest, wisest teachers were my actors. Everything I've been learning, I've learned by my actors, or I would say in a different way, I've been learning on their body, on their skin. They were paying for all my faults, my distractions, my absence of concentration, my incapacity on discovering the glimpse of light in something they were doing. And because of the first law of theater, relationships don't last in theater. After between 6, 7, 8, 9 years, people separate. All groups, the history of all groups, contemporary theater in the last 50 years show this. Also Grotowski's theater, also living theater, all of them, all our reference points. I didn't want to lose my actors. And therefore, I began to fight as an obsessed against this law of the theater. When one of my actors wanted to leave, in this case was Iben Nage Rasmussen. You have seen her last night. She's been with me 52 years. She had been very, very important in the first 10 years of our theater. She came, she was a pale, she was an addict. So she was on the brink of suicide when she arrived. So she was trying to come out of drugs. She had not very strong physical attitude, but she fought, and then slowly after 2, 3, 4 years, she began to bloom and give a lot of inspiration to all the group. When she, after almost 10 years, decided, was on the brink to separate because she has found another actor and they want to have their own group, then I felt how unjust is the condition of the actor who has been giving all her life to a group, to a company, to a ground which is being cultivated by her motivation, energies, faith, loyalty. And then when she wants to leave, she has nothing. She doesn't get nothing. It's so unjust. And remember, I've been a foreign worker and I know what injustice is. I know I could feel on my body the least change of attitude which favored other workers who maybe were whiter than me. So I decided to change the rules and the status of the theater, the legislative, the juridic framework. We were Odin Theater and then Nordic Theater Laboratory. Then I decided to abolish Odin Theater and to make a Nordic Theater Laboratory where within this framework many different activities could be. And the first activity was Odin, and then even could remain there, totally independent, free to have her own group. I couldn't help economically very much, but I provided her with half of her salary. And then for many years, I think for almost 10 years, even made this independent journey with her group. And then when also her group, after 10 years, disbanded, because this is the law of our profession, she came back to the home, the prodigal son or the prodigal daughter. I stop here and I let Julia take over. Don't be afraid, there will be a lot of words today.
I got to know Odin Theater in 1976. The group had already existed 12 years. I was working in Italy, in Milan, was a political theater group. We had a house which was occupied where we had a theater school. And I organized that Odin should come and make a barter and a workshop. After this, I thought I would go to Denmark. For a period of time, my idea was that I would learn everything and go back to my colleagues in Milan. And when I got back, I got to Denmark, and I couldn't speak the language, I couldn't speak Danish. And suddenly I was like nobody, because in Milan I was responsible for a theater group and responsible for the school. And what I realized was that I did not know what an action was. And that in reality all that I was doing was based on ideas, on wishes, on visions, that did not have any concrete base. And so I had to learn very slowly what it meant to make an action. And today, after 42 years, still for me what is the mystery is how to explain what an action is. Because, yes, we have the training, and in the exercises our bodies learn to think. But then many people, when they come to us and they want to learn, it's like they want the method, the formula, the result, and they don't understand that it's a very, very long process that teaches you what an action is. But sometimes I say to people, take a pen, lift the pen, put it down, and then do as if you were lifting the pen, and put it down. Then take the pen and think of what is happening in your back. And when you really take the pen, there is always a small explosion in your back. But when you do as if, there is no explosion. And that becomes another way of working. So I had to find something which functioned for me. And I think this is important in what I can try and tell today, is how you translate the tasks or the reference or the inspiration that you get from other actors, from other groups, from other colleagues, into your own language. And so translate it to exercises, a way of working that function for yourself and which are not necessarily right or wrong, but they function for you. So, for instance, I began working with, as if I was speaking different languages, because I am English, but I grew up in Italy, so speaking Italian at school, and my parents spoke French as a secret language, so it was the language I learned immediately. Then I went to live in Denmark, so I had to learn Danish. On tour, we have learned Spanish. With an actor which has come to work with us, we have learned Portuguese. So we are changing languages all the time. So I'm always very curious about the musicality of languages. So I started working for myself on different languages. The raven himself, his horse, that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Calm your spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. Unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe. Of a direst cruelty may think my blood. Stop up the axis and passage to remorse. And this I could do also with invented languages. Paraventa, stai carascito coita, Hanna raiscito, moita ti, henda, Gildo, ne mulvo gianda gorgiuso, Gianda gurda, Gianda sburbi gielta, Gianda. Sahin, sahan tashin cho, Sahin chini chompa, Hai tohin. Totomatiko tada, Matakati shitoko, Matakata, Hashatukuni, Nikado, Washitukun. Or I started working with different animals, the sound of different animals, which would be, for instance, a sheep. Meh, meh, e siccome non c'era. Or a cat. Meow, meow, e siccome non c'era più. A dog. A cock. A cow. Moo, moo, e siccome non c'eran più. I developed a lot of exercises and ways of working that functioned for me. But what was essential was always to understand what an action is. And also with the voice, how you can find the action. Like if I am throwing. E siccome non c'erano più speranze di pace. If I am carrying. E siccome non c'erano più. If I am pointing. E siccome non c'erano più speranze. If I am stroking. E siccome non c'erano più speranze di pace. Dopo 4 primavere il soldato tirò le conseguenze da eroe.
When she does the vocal action, But just not to understand technically, but all this is a know-how. Just to get an anthropology. And when it comes to the yeah, continue, sorry.
When you're working with an action, one of the important things is the detail. And this is something which I have learned in the years at Odeon. To think in detail and not to think in general. So, for instance, I could make out of an image, I can work with the voice with an image. I can think of the rain falling, and again, it is the verb within the image which helps me. So, it's come non c'era più speranza di piacere con qua. The smoke rising. E siccome non c'erano più speranze. The fog embracing. E siccome non c'erano più. I can think of the lioness protecting her small ones. Of caressing a white Persian cat. I can think of a teacher giving a lesson. E siccome non c'erano più speranze di pace, of a seducer, somebody seducing, bringing towards you. E siccome non c'erano più speranze, of a sport commentating a football match. E siccome non c'erano più speranze! And of course I can think of the different languages like I did before. One of the fundamental relationships for me in my training is with music. And the music not just to dance physically, but also with the voice. So I can improvise as if I'm working with music. Third Raven himself is paused that proves the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Calm his spirits that kind of mortal thoughts and sex me here and fill me from the ground to the total here is cruelty. Party cool. Process for Ashes of Bread. EUGENIO sat me on a chair and he said, make your mouth extrovert and your nose introvert. Make your your nose extrovert, your eye, one eye introvert, the other eye extrovert. Today, people were talking about our performance and saying how when we sit on our chairs during the performance, still there is this strong presence. And a lot of the work that I do just sitting on the chair and being alive has to do with how I can create space just with my way of looking, by the position of my head, by the relationship between my head and my hands and my arms, the relationship between the way I am sitting in one direction, looking at the other, looking at the other. And so it is not necessary to do very big actions to be able to be present. But of course, this knowledge also comes from years of doing big actions. Eugenio spoke a lot, and now he tells me we've got to finish, which is true, because we have to go to prepare the performance for this evening.
There is one pleasure which I still have, and this is to discover something I didn't know. And therefore, the pleasure of reading books for me is still as virgin, as strong as it was when I was 14 years old. And discover if I can travel in my fantasy, thanks for these pleasures. A book by Romain Rolland, a French author, was about the biography of Ramakrishna, the biography of Vivekananda, made me travel to Japan for the first time. Yeah. And I felt, again, this few years ago, 3 years ago, a feeling of gratitude towards this continent we call Asia, but in reality which is full of huge forests of wisdom. So I wrote a book, show my gratitude, which I call My Journey Through Asian Acting Techniques, and the title is The Moon Rises from the Ganges. And in this book, it's written how much I've been learning by observing Japanese, Chinese, Indian, traditional theater dances. All these books which you see here have been written by me, but also by all the actors. I'm very proud that my actors are not only decent professionals, but they are also able to put down on an intellectual level, on a pedagogical level, their experiences.
Thank you very much, friends. And definitely a big thank to EUGENIO BARBA, Julia, and his entire group. Yesterday night we were together and we were discussing so many things. So he promised me that he was going to give me 5 kilo wisdom and 5 kilo knowledge. So in return we are also giving you not less than 5 kilo knowledge. But he said, don't give me at the end when I am going on the airport, because I will have to buy another suitcase. So we promised that we are not going to give you at the last moment, and at this moment also, we'll definitely send our best books which we have published by the National School of Drama to your home address. Thank you very much being with us, because this is one of the greatest opportunity probably we got in this 8th Theatre Olympics to listen to you, to your knowledge, to your wisdom, to your processes, to your way of training actor, to way of thinking how theatre can be. And at this age, the passion and the energy which you produced, probably that is going to be in future also with us. Thank you very much, Mr. EUGENIO BARBA. Thank you.